Greetings, TVR2A. This is a video lab. This is a video walkthrough of Pro Tools Lab number 9. This is mixing a song. You're going to be given the entire Pro Tools session as a zip file. You'll unzip it, and then you'll go ahead and do a series of edits. You'll do signal processors, you'll mix it, and then you'll bounce it as a mix. This is for PC computer using Windows 10, and I'll be using Pro Tools Intro. Okay, so first step is to go ahead and get into the Canvas site, and you'll be scrolling down to this section. This is also where all of your instructions will be. And you're going to click the downloader for the Rev 4416 Chopping Wood 7 tracks. So let's go ahead and download it. It is about 140 megabytes, so it might take a little bit of time and will take a little bit of space. But let's go ahead and download it. All right, and once it's downloaded, you can go into your downloads folder and locate it. What we'll be doing is unzipping it. So it just takes a double click. You then get the folder that says Rev 4416 Chopping Wood 7 tracks. And let's go ahead and put that into our 2A sessions folder. And that's right here. You'll go ahead and double click that folder, which has been unzipped. And what you're looking for is the file that says Rev 4416 Chopping Wood 7 tracks. And that's the one you'll be opening up. And all it takes is a double click. This will launch Pro Tools and open up the session. The session has now opened. You'll see that there are 7 different tracks. The first track is a stereo track, which is drums. And then it has the bass, guitar, acoustic guitar, fiddle, Jason Vox, Clay Vox, Andy Vox. Everything should look identical. You want to make sure that you can see the edit window in its entirety. Also, you'll be doing the control equals so that you can also take a look at your mixer as well. Most of what you'll be doing when we mix will be using these faders here, using the pan knobs, and also inserting signal processors at the top for each track. I'll do control equals to get back to my edit window. Now in here, you'll want to go ahead and double check that you have your playback engine set up for your particular system. We're not recording into Pro Tools for this lab, so the input device does not really matter. But the output device does matter because that's the only way you're going to hear the session. So mine is set for my speakers and headphones. So ideally, you are going to have a nice set of speakers or maybe a good pair of headphones to do this. Mix on, it is very difficult to try to mix using the built-in speakers on your computer. That's not ideal. So if you have headphones, that would be better. If you have actual external speakers, that would even be better. Go ahead and click OK. The session has been set up, and I'll be turning my mic on and off based on when I'm doing edits, in case you hear any bumps. So first thing is, according to our instructions that we can always refer back to, it says the first thing is to go ahead and color code the tracks. Color coding meaning the track here on the left side currently shows blue, but we want the drums to be a yellow color. And I usually like to do this from the mixer view. So I'll go ahead and do control equals, get to the mixer. And down towards the bottom of the mixer, we'll go ahead and minimize this view a little bit. All right, so I have minimized the mixer a little bit. At the very bottom, it says drum stereo, and there's a blue band. And what you're going to do is double click right on that blue band, and we're going to just click the yellow color. Now also, we want to further colorize the mixer so that the whole channel changes color. In order to do that, we'll click the drop down arrow where it says UI customization, and then we'll click on the arrow for tracks. And then in here where it says track saturation, track header saturation, we'll drag a little bit to the right. And you'll see now the track will start to turn yellowish here. And that's what we're doing so that you can look at your mixer and quickly identify the tracks that you're working with. All right, let's go ahead and do the strings. And the strings, I believe we were going to do red. The vocals will be green. So let's do the string instruments, which is bass, acoustic, and fiddle. I hold the shift key and click on each name. And then I can double click on the blue color. And this one's going to be red. Maybe more red like this. And it's the same thing. Go grab that saturation and make sure it's nice and strong. You can see the track looks a little bit red now. And then the last three, we're going to do green. So I'm going to click Jason Vox, hold the shift key, click Clay and Andy, double click on the blue, and now we're going to go ahead and click on a green. And now I've color coded the tracks so you can quickly see as I scan over the mixer, I can tell which tracks I'm working with. Engineers like to do this when they have 30, 40 different tracks, and then they can create groups based on color so that when they're scrolling back and forth, they can quickly locate the tracks that they want to work with. So it's really just an organizational thing. All right, let's go ahead and see what our next step is. Step 2, noise remove from tracks, edit, cut, and delete regions that have 1 or more seconds of silence or unusable audio that's not part of the track. See below for specific areas. So here it has me zooming in, so I'm seeing seconds, and then my first edit is going to be from 212 to 232. Now the background information for this particular recording session, it's a bluegrass acoustic band with 3 singers, and they did this as a live recording in a studio, and so they set up various microphones in the room. And then they all performed at once. And so what you're going to hear is each track is going to have a little bit of bleed from the other musicians that are in the same room. So even though you see a track that maybe says fiddle, you're going to hear more than just the fiddle on that track. You're going to hear some of the drums bleeding through. You'll hear some voices. So our job as the mixer is to edit these tracks so that we remove as much noise and extraneous sounds as possible so that each track is clean as it can be. And then it will sound better when we put the whole thing together in a mix. So that's the sort of the preface and the idea of what we're working with here. So we do have a drum track, which is stereo, and that track actually has all the different parts of the drums. It was a collection of 4 different microphones that we bounced down to a stereo track so that we didn't have as many faders to work with. But the other tracks, the other 6 tracks, are just specific to that instrument. So bass guitar, acoustic guitar, fiddle. Then we have Jason, who's a singer. We have Clay, who's a singer. And then we have the female vocalist, Andy. And we'll be cutting out any times that they're not singing as well. All right, but the first one was on the drum track. So let's go ahead and do our control equals. We'll get to the mixer here. And I'm going to zoom in at the top here. It says minute 20. So I'll do a couple letter T's. So I'm looking at seconds. And then here in the upper left-hand corner, it's vital that I'm going to do this in slip mode. You don't want to do any of this in shuffle mode. If you do shuffle, then anytime you do an edit, it's going to throw off the timing of the track. So please confirm you are only using slip mode for all of these edits. All right, and then the tools I'll be using will mainly be the Smart tool, which again is your trimmer, selector, and your grabber all together. Now I'm going to focus in on the drum track, which is this top one. It says drum stereo. And I'm going to jump to where it said 2 minutes and 12 seconds. And in that area, you'll notice as I look at the track that there looks like there's a bunch of sound, but then here it looks like there's multiple seconds, almost 20 seconds or so of just silent moment. So I'm going to go ahead and click and listen to that just to verify that indeed there are no drums playing at this point. And then if that's the case, I'm going to select that whole thing and delete it. Let's go ahead and just listen to this moment in here. Let's go ahead and solo that track so we just hear the drums. Good. So you do notice you do hear some other parts in there, right? You hear the violet, the fiddle. So all that is just playing in the room. So our goal here is to remove as much of that as we can. I'm just going to click and drag my selection all the way to about here. And I'm going to hit the backspace key, which will remove that whole section. Remember, I'm in slip mode, so nothing is going to be sliding around. And now when we play it, right, it's just silent. So that's the goal. So that's the first edit. Get rid of all that from about 212 to about 232 from that drum track. Next one says edit out everything on all tracks from 3 minutes and 8 seconds right after the big hit at the end. Let's go ahead and see what that is. So I'm going to unsolo the drums and I'm going to skip to the end of the song. And I do notice that there is a hit and then there's a bunch of dead space. So I want to go ahead and get rid of everything after that hit. So let's go ahead and let it do the hit and then we'll make that cut. All right, so you saw what I did is I just highlighted here with the selector. I went across all tracks all the way to the bottom, and I just did the backspace key. So now we just have the hit, and we don't have anything at the end. You'll notice at the end there's like some talking and some noise. So we want to make sure we chopped all tracks off at the same moment. Okay, let's go ahead and see what the next step is. On the fiddle track, delete everything from the beginning to 29 seconds, and then also from 107 to 119. All right, so the fiddle must come in around 29. Let's go ahead and solo the fiddle track, and I'm going to go to the 29-second mark. I'll just slide it over here because I'm pretty close. It looks like around here somewhere. Let's go ahead and play this part and see when the fiddle actually kicks in. So it looks like the fiddle is going to come in right here. So in this case, I'm going to just click once with the selector tool so I get my flashing cursor. I'm going to hit letter B, and then I'll click with the grabber on the clip on the left. All this is just noise, and I'll hit the backspace key. And now it's quiet up until the fiddle comes in. The next edit was somewhere around 109, which looks like maybe is a little bit further here. Looks like in here there's nothing going on. So he comes in right around here. So I'll go ahead and do my B there and right here, letter B. And then I need to find out where he stopped playing. Right here. And that's another letter B. So that's about 1 minute and 6 seconds to about 1 minute and 19, give or take. So I put 2 markers, 2 little breaks with the letter B. Then I use grabber in the middle, and then I'll just do backspace key. And that cleans up that fiddle track so that the only parts that are left are the parts where the fiddle's playing. Also get into the habit of saving often. So that's Control S. And let's see what the next step is. All right, so we've gotten this far. We've done this one. Now we're going to go work on the vocal tracks. So Jason Vox, the only thing that should remain is a very small section from 219 to 229. Everything else should be deleted. Now, the story with Jason is also the acoustic guitar player. So he's playing guitar, but he also has a mic. for his voice, and he only comes in a little moment towards the end where he does a little bit of harmonies, and that's it. So in this case, Jason's track is all noise up until we get to where he's going to kick in with the voice. So notice the waveform here. That's all extraneous sounds that we don't want to be part of that mix. It's probably bleed from his guitar and things like that. So let's go ahead and go forward until we can see where he starts to sing, which I believe is right in this section. Let's go ahead and click spacebar and give that a listen.
Every time.
All right, so it's right here. He says the word every time, so that's where he starts to sing. So there's a break there. Now I can go ahead and click to the left of that break and I can remove everything up until that point with the backspace. And then I go to the end and see where he's finished.
I am a saint, but my heart's filled with sin.
He says sin. So right after the word sin, he's done. I'm going to put another mark there with my cursor. I'm going to do letter B. And now I'm going to click to the right of that break and backspace. So everything is gone from Jason's track except for this little moment. All right, that's good. That's a big edit because there was a lot of noise coming from his mic that was not vocal related. So we definitely wanted to get rid of all that stuff. All right, let's see next step. Clay Vox, cut any time out that he's not singing. Same thing for Andy. So Clay and Andy are the two leads on this track. And now what you're going to do is I'll go ahead and pause this video and do all of these edits. And then when I come back, we'll be left with just the moments where they're actually singing. So process would be go ahead and solo those two tracks, Clay and Andy, and then listen. And anytime you hear Clay singing, you definitely want to keep it. But anytime there's, a flat line, for example, then we're getting rid of all that stuff. Same thing for Andy's part. So this is going to take you a little bit of time. So I'll go ahead and pause. I'll go ahead and edit those two tracks, and then I'll come back. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and pause that video. All right, I'm back. So I did all the edits on the Clay and Andy Vox tracks. And now you can see when we look at it, I'll zoom out with letter R, you start to see all the stuff that I've chopped out. So the only thing that's left are the moments where they're singing. Sometimes they sing together, sometimes they sing opposite each other. And then Jason comes in here for this one section. So yours should look something like this. All right. And again, I just use selection tool from the Smart tool, highlight stuff that I don't want, and then use a backspace. Okay, let's see if that takes care of our edits. That takes care of all the edits. Then we move into the mixing phase, which is going to involve some signal processing, some plugins, some automation, some specific automation on the fiddle part, and then some panning, and then we'll set up a master fader. So for the next bit, it's really just going through and putting some signal processors on all tracks. So I'm going to unsolo those two parts. I'm going to do this using the mixer, so Control equals. And we're going to go to the top and we'll start from left to right with the drums, and we're going to insert an EQ plugin on every single channel that we have here, every track. So it's click right here below inserts A-E. We're going to choose the multi-channel plugin because this is a stereo track. We're going to go to the EQ section and then choose EQ 3.7 band. Now, anytime I do EQ, which is all the time, it's usually in the first position of the track. And my goal is to shape it to something unique so that no other channels or tracks on the session share the same identical EQ shape. So I want them all to be unique so that they all fit together when it's finished. And for me to listen back, I like to solo the track that I'm working with and then go ahead and play it. All right, so the goal here, or I should say my first idea is I could go and I could manually start to move things around as it's playing. So as it's playing, I will hear the changes. But to save a little bit of time, I can go up to my presets, which is located right beneath the preset. Click on factory default, go to the drums. I'm going to go to drum overheads, and I'm going to choose, let's do, how about Brighton cymbals? See what that does. All right, gives me a little bump right here, the cymbals. Also, because I want to turn the kick drum up a little bit, I'm going to grab this dot here and just raise it a few dB, so that'll bring the kick drum out a little bit. Let me go ahead and play this and see what it's sounding like. Very good. And as it's playing, you can turn it on and turn it off with the bypass button. And you can also click and move those little color dots around. Each of those dots represents the frequency left side to right. But anyhow, I'm happy with that curve on my drums, and I'll click the red X and move on to the next track. So let's go ahead and solo the next track, which is my bass guitar. We'll click in that same inserts A through E, same spot. We're going to choose a plugin, and this time it's going to be EQ37 band. It's the same one each time, just this is mono, so it didn't say multi-channel. And I'm going to do the same process, preset, factory default, bass guitar, and let's go to add warmth. See what that does. Nice little hump right there. It's about 300 hertz or so. And let's hear how that sounds. Good. So that is electric bass. That is a direct bass connection, meaning they plugged right into the interface. So there's no miking on the bass, which is why you don't hear any sorts of bleed. It also gives us a little bit of a, it's very clean signal. There's also a little buzz in there too, but we'll ignore that for now. But I like this shape, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it. I'm going to click the red X, upper right-hand corner, and then solo the next one, acoustic guitar. So it's the same process, insert A-E. We're going to this same spot, and it's the same plugin, EQ37 band. This is acoustic guitar, so let's go ahead and go to factory default. There's acoustic guitars, and let's do big acoustic guitar. All right, so it kind of dropped those frequencies out, or raised those. Let's hear how that sounds. All right, so I have EQ'd the guitar track, and we'll go on. So that's unsolo, it's solo the fiddle, and we'll insert the same EQ. Again, it's click here in inserts A, EQ, and you're choosing EQ37 band. See if there's any fiddle factory defaults. If something that says strings, let's go ahead and choose, well, you can pick anything you want, but I'm going to do add detail. It gives me a little bump in the 5K range. Let's listen to that. I might have to jump ahead to hear that part, which I think he comes in about here. Nice. All right, dig that. And let's do the vocal, Jason Vox. So let's solo him. Now he comes in. And let's go ahead and do that plugin as well. So it's insert A, single click, plugin, EQ37 band. Jason, we'll go to factory default, and we'll go down here to the bottom where it says vocals, and we'll choose smooth vocal.
Every time I fall in love, I hug and kiss and push and shove.
Nice. All right, so he sounds good. We'll do the solo for Clay. And we'll do same EQ. That's insert A. EQ37 band. Factory default. Vocals, and we'll do add thickness.
Every time I fall in love, I hug and kiss, then push and shove. I'm solid, then I'm soft, and then I'm gone, and then I'm back again. I am a saint, but my heart's filled with sin.
All right, I did a little modifying of that one, but I like his. And then the last one is Andy Fox. That's female singer. Let's go ahead and click in Insert A, plug in EQ 3.7 band, factory default vocals, and we'll just click the generic female Vox, see what that does. Drops the low end off, I see.
Every time I fall in love, I hug and kiss them, pushing.
Nice. So that takes care of the EQ for every single track. So now you'll see EQ, and if you click on each shape, they all should be different as you go down the line. Very good. Let's check out our next steps. Step 2, your choice of time domain processing on fiddle track, like something like a delay or reverb. All right, so that means that the fiddle is going to have a second insert. So besides EQ, it's also going to have like a delay or reverb. I'm going to choose a reverb. So I'm going to go to the fiddle track. I'm going to solo it. I'm going to go to the insert B, which is right below the EQ 3.7 band, and click. And this is plug in, and this time we're going to use the reverb category, and I'm going to choose the D verb, mono. And I'm going to pull this value down. Remember, that makes it a little too echoey. I'm going to put it to about 35. Large hall. And let's hear what the fiddle sounds like. Nice. Now it has this real long kind of tail on it, like a reverb tail. Gives a little space, right? Again, that's just being done so that you get used to using more than one plugin on a track. Great, so that takes care of my time domain processor. Let's go back to the instructions. Now I'm looking at a volume automation on all vocal tracks. Feel free to use on other tracks as well if they need it. Decrease volume if the singer gets too loud. Increase if it's too soft. And then there's also going to be some volume automation on the fiddle track. Now you have a little bit of leeway here. So I do all of this using the edit screen. So I'm going to do Control equals. And I'm going to open up the automation paths for the voices. So here's Jason. I'm going to click in the lower left-hand corner of his track. Also Clay's and also Andy. Now you get the solid line, which represents the volume of that particular voice or that track. And I'm going to go ahead and mess around with some automation so that when they're a little low that I boost them, and when they're a little loud I turn them down. Now this can be done while all the tracks are playing, but if you're going to do all the tracks, you do need to set up a little bit of an initial mix. So let's go to our mixer. Control equals. And I'm just going to play from the beginning and make a real easy, quick initial settings of my fader. So let's go ahead and do that.
Ain't too good at chopping wood, but my daddy said I should. Need a gal with a nice strong back, childbearing hips, and a one-room shack. I'm a hard worker every day. Dirty hands and a little pay. I get up early and I get back late.
Well, I ain't too good at matching clothes, wearing heels and pantyhose. I need a man that's sensitive, stoic and contemplative, a scholar and a gentleman, a collar with strong arms to hold me.
So what if we're not everything?
All right, so I just made some initial settings. I turned the drums down. I turned the bass guitar down a little bit. I left acoustic where he was. I turned the fiddle down slightly. And then now my voices, I'm going to start them at 0, but I'm going to go into the session now, again, with the control equals. And I'm going to start to adjust those volumes as I listen to the track. So I'm going to go from the very beginning where he starts to sing, which is right here.
Ain't too good at chopping wood, but my daddy said I
He's a little loud here, so I am going to reduce. Now, you'll notice the way I do this is I click once with the grabber, and then now I can get the bracket to move the volume line simply by moving down below. And again, I'm using the Smart tool. And all I'll do is I'll click and I'll just drag it down a few dB. That keeps me from needing to hold the the control key and then clicking into the line. Like I would have had to have done 4 clicks. But if I just click on the clip above, I can then grab the line and move it. But let's hear how that sounds.
ain't too good at chopping wood.
Already I like it. So that's better. I'm going to listen to this part.
Well, I ain't too good at matching clothes, wearing heels and pantyhose. I need a man.
That's good, but she is a little weak. I'm actually going to bump that up just a little bit. I'll just go by +2.
And I get back late.
Well, I ain't too good.
Good. I like that transition. I'm going to come into the next section.
So when it
He's definitely too loud there, and I'm going to go ahead and drag that down a little bit. I can also enlarge this so it's easier to work with.
So if we're not
Okay, and then she's still a little weak. I am going to bump her up just a little bit, maybe just by +2.
so if
That's better. Let's hear how this one is.
our mother
Same thing. So you get the idea. Again, you have a lot of leeway here because it's really up to you to decide how much you're going to increase or decrease. I'm going to make some initial settings just based on what I know is going to happen.
our fathers
I like that.
could I be the one who's
Still a little strong on him. I'll turn him down just about 2.5.
could I be the one
He really gets loud there. I'm going to draw that down too. She gets a pretty strong too.
could I be the one who you redeem?
And I'm going to turn her down just a tad. Remember, you can get to your decimals when you move up and down if you hold the control key down while you move.
I've gotten good at acting sweet, but it's hard.
She's a little quiet here, so I am going to move that up. Now keep in mind, what we're doing is all automation. That's different than if you were to go into the clips and raise or lower the actual volume of the clip. That's different sound, a different process. So what we're doing is actually automating from part to part.
I'm getting good at acting tough, but I haven't gotten good enough. Wanna be on the silver screen, I'm a
Yeah, he's a little loud here for sure. I'm going to turn that down.
I'm getting good at acting tough.
Better. There's some other things that are getting a little bit loud there too, so I might have to come back to the fiddle part.
So what if we're not everything?
Now this part, since I feel like all of that is low, I'm going to highlight it all and just move it all up a little bit.
So what if we're not everything?
Okay, and then I'm going to go back to this technique. That one too.
So what if we're not everything? Could I be the one who you redeem?
It's a little loud here. I'm going to bring that down.
Been trying hard to understand what it means to be a man, and every time I fall in love, I hug and kiss and push and shove. I'm solid, then I'm soft, and then I'm gone, and then I'm back again. I am a saint, but my heart's filled with sin. So what if we're not?
And then I'm going to turn all of his stuff down a little bit here.
So what if we're not everything? Our mothers and our fathers.
a little loud when she did that line, so I'm going to bring that down to just -2. And then Jason's part is nice, but he actually is a little bit strong. I'm just going to barely duck him down, maybe -1 there. And then let's hear it play out here.
Our mothers and our fathers expect us to be.
Good.
Could I be the one who you redeemed?
All right, there's my automation on my voices now, so I've taken care of that. There is an automation that I want you to do on your fiddle track, which is going to be at 121 to 135. Let's go ahead and look at 121 to 135. That's about here. And let's go to the fiddle part, which is right here. So we have to open up automation for that.
I'm getting good at acting tough, but I haven't gotten good enough. Wanna be on the silver screen. I'm a kind-hearted man that's often mean. I'm a lover and a fighter. I am a worker and a writer. I am a dreamer, woken up by fits of rage. So
Nice. So how far do we want to take it? To 135. And that's about where I stop. So in that case, I'm going to go ahead and grab it here. I'll go to about 135, which is right about here. And I'm going to just turn him down a little bit.
Let go.
I'm getting good at acting tough, but I haven't gotten good enough. Wanna be on the silver screen. I'm a kind-hearted man.
Nice. And even while I'm at it, I didn't even say this in the instructions, but I'm also going to turn that acoustic guitar down just because that's what I'm feeling at the moment.
I'm getting good at acting tough.
That's better. And that's just a little extra there. All right, so I went ahead and did my automation on the tracks that needed it. Feel free to add automation anywhere if you want to get creative and do it other places. That's completely fine, but at least do some. Step 5 says you're going to do panning according to the spread at the bottom. So we'll do that. That's real easy. The panning is going to give us a little stereo spatial sound in our speakers, so it doesn't sound like everything's just coming from the middle, which is what's happening right now. You can see everything is like at 12 o'clock. But we're going to pan some of this stuff around so it kind of spreads it around in our listening space. So from left to right, drums are already stereo and they're already panned hard left, hard right. So we don't want to touch that. We'll leave that alone. The bass is a low frequency instrument. Typically low frequency tracks like to be in the middle of the mix, so we keep that where it's at as well. Acoustic guitar, we're going to spread him a little bit to the left. Fiddle, I'm going to go opposite. I'm going to go a little bit to the right. I'm looking at the numbers. It says 15, 17. Jason Vox is, I'm going to turn him even a little further, like 43. Clay a little to the left, maybe about 12. And then Andy, I'll go a little bit to the right, kind of 12 as well. You don't want to have things kind of piling up on the sides per se, so make sure it's relatively balanced out. And then when you give it a listen,
I'm getting good at acting tough.
now you can hear a little kind of shape to your mix. You hear things on the left, you hear a little stuff to the right as well. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and use a master fader. That's step 6. So we'll go ahead and put a master fader in the track. And that's Shift Control letter N. And we want to choose one new stereo master fader. Make sure it's a stereo master fader. And you click create. Okay, I like to have it on the end of my mixer. So if we put it somewhere else, you can just click and you can just drag it wherever you want. Okay, drag it to the right. Notice mine is a little bit dimmed out, so it's not set up right. So the output needs to be adjusted. It needs to match the other outputs. So I'm going to click in here and change the output to 1-2. Now you'll see it activates. And now when I hit the space bar, you'll see activity. All right, now my master fader also allows me to do a signal processor, and I'm going to go ahead and put in a limiter of sorts. It's going to be in the Dynamics category. It's a multi-channel plugin, and it's called Maxim. Maxim is a limiter. It lets me boost up the overall volume of everything in the mix without it going into distortion mode. And I'm going to use the preset called CD Mastering. And then that's it. You can close that with the red X. Now when you play it, it'll be a little bit stronger. We do need to do one more automation moment on that master fader. So let's go ahead and do Control equals. We're going to go to that master fader, which is at the bottom. And we're going to go to the end. And there's that moment where they do that hit, which is right around here. I'll do a little zoom with T. So it's right about here. Right after he does the hit, I want a real fast diagonal fade out. So I'm going to go ahead and hold Control key. I'm going to click once and twice. I'm going to grab the second one and pull it all the way down. And then listen. Oops, it's a little too soon, so I'm not happy with that. So I am going to get rid of that one. Get rid of both of those. And I'm going to put it more around here. So it's right about here. I'm going to hold that Control key, 2 clicks, grab the second one. That's better. So right after the hit, and then it goes real fast, fade out, so we don't hear any cut in the clip that we made. So that's master fader automation. And I put my first dot around 306 or so. And then I pulled it all the way down by about 308. So nice and fast. And make sure it goes all the way down to the bottom. Again, do a Control S to save. And we're almost finished with this lab. The last step is to go ahead and do the bounce mix and then submit it to the assignment. So let's go ahead and do that. I like to do the bounce mix. I'll do letter R so I can zoom out a bit. And I'll go ahead and grab from the time right here, which is right after that last hit, and just drag all the way to the left. So you see I have the whole song selected. No tracks are soloed, no tracks are muted. Now I go to the File menu, and I'm going to choose Bounce Mix. All right, so I've set up my bounce. I've given it a name. Make sure the mix source is the same output as your faders on your edit window. File format should be interleave, sample rate 44.1. File destination is my session folder, bounce files. And then left-hand check mark for offline, and click bounce. This is MP3 tagger. You can just click OK. You should see the progress going. Once it's finished, we'll go ahead and go locate that file. Save, Control S, and then quit, Control Q. All right, let's go ahead and go locate and get ready and listen to it before we actually play it. Documents. We're going to our TVR2A sessions. We're going into the mix, which was REV 4416, chopping wood. Inside there, you'll see the bounce files folder, and that's where your MP3 should be. So that's the file that I need to go ahead and put into Canvas. So let's go back to Canvas, to the top, and it says Pro Tools Lab 9, and we'll go ahead and click Start Assignment. Start Assignment, scroll up to where you see the rocket ship, go find your MP3, and you'll be dragging it in. There it is. So I'm going to click and drag it in. Let it go. And then just click Submit Assignment. There are no questions that you need to answer for this lab. And then there you have it. All right, congratulations, and I hope you had fun with this mix.